into authentic conversations about ourselves and our community, exploring topics that uplift and inspire us. From personal growth to social change. So grab your teacup and get ready to join the conversation. don't necessarily think that this was just like something that um it was like, oh, Diddy is just a violent, because so far I'm not seeing violent sex trafficker. Okay. However, I will say that, what I'm saying, Diddy is a monster in that sense. You see what I'm saying? To where if things don't go his way, he will try to put his foot up your ass. Okay. And unfortunately, these are things that these women were, unfortunately introduced to. Diddy gave him a proposal of, I will do this, I will give you this. I will make sure this is completely taken care of. You won't have to worry about anything other than being accountable for when I say you need to be accounted for to do these acts of X services. Okay. Kind of like a bunny ranch type of situation, except, Diddy enforced it with, somewhat violence and coercion, as far as like, okay, so you're not going to hold up your end of the bargain. This is what I got from the testimony that I heard, or not, the audio that I heard of Diddy saying, right? I'm doing my job, which is paying your rent, take care of you. When your rapper boyfriend 50, baby daddy 50 Cent, obviously is not, keeping your rent paid or doing whatever he's supposed to be doing, as far as, I'm seeing shit. I'm in place now. You know what I'm saying? Where where 50 Cent should have been, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? However, all I do know is that 50 Cent can be a little bit of a stickler when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, how he appropriates his money. If you are not somewhere appreciating and, thankful of the fact that 50 Cent is giving you the lifestyle that he is affording you to have, if you, seemingly want more and you're not doing more in the eyes of what 50 Cent, expects from you to receive more money from him as his baby mama or girlfriend or any fucking body, then he will cut you down in size, give you what is like, how am I trying to say that? Just justifiably do, according to you being his baby mama and or girlfriend or nothing else. And that'll be what that is. So I think that's why Diddy was able to get into a situation shit with 50 Cent's baby mama. He saw an into window to get at 50 and he took it. So anyway, yeah. So BT Man 58 says, did anybody remember the prosecution leaking out that Diddy was renting Cassie to record execs and other big businessmen in the entertainment industry? It's funny how we haven't heard any such thing during this trial. I was saying that same thing too, BT Man 58. Like, okay, so we heard a lot of shit before Diddy even got arrested. Like, he was gay, sleeping with a whole bunch of men and all this stuff. Oh, this is what I wanted to get into, y'all. I heard Ray J enter the group chat. I heard Ray J entered the group chat with Diddy's trial, y'all. Now, remember, I had done some commentating on Ray J when we were watching the TMZ stuff, because Ray J did a lot of interviews with TMZ on the Diddy documentaries that TMZ have done. Y'all can find that on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. I have always believed that Ray J had, some intertwinings with Diddy, freak offishly. So let me see what he didn't enter the group chat saying, y'all. They say Ray J was mentioned briefly at the Diddy trial. Let's see.
Order. Come to order. Ray J has been brought up at the Diddy trial. And it's not just incidental. There's been a lot of fake news swirling. about with the Diddy trial. And I have had to make several videos about it because it aggravates me. The thing with the Wendy Williams, fake. Kanye West, fake. Prince, private performance, fake. All fake. Something that wasn't reported on at all was real. And it has to do with Ray J. Okay, the way I found out about this was make it make sense because he's been inside the courtroom. I am live on That Surprise Witness every day, pretty much Monday through Friday, every day Monday through Friday for the past several weeks. And, except Memorial Day. Actually, no, there was a Friday and a Monday off. Most days I am live about the Diddy trial. I'm covering the Diddy trial. It's not televised. It's not live streamed. So you have to just read from all these different news sources in real time and try to kind of piece together. And sometimes they disagree with each other. Sometimes one will have a detail the other one don't have, and then together you can kind of get the outline of a situation that maybe might be going on in court. It is the funnest thing to me, yes, funnest, to hear what people are doing all day while I'm live. They're like, I've been babysitting, oh, I've been home with my kids sick, my favorite one still so far is this guy, guy, he said he lays tiles. He's a tile layer. I'm like, yes. So I get into like describing what I'm doing because I just imagine my voice is booming across like somebody's like construction site. Somebody's like flipping a house or something and it's just me talking about Diddy, reading it from like news sources. Anyway, none of them told us about Ray J. I didn't even talk about this. I didn't even know. I get off my live stream. Then I got to go start watching the coverage of the people that's been in the court all day because now they have a different perspective as well. So, Tisa Tells and Make It Make Sense. That's the main two that I will watch because they're in there every day. And then there's Infamous Sylvia reads the sources as possible and then piece together what's going on. And then maybe the next day I'll have an update or whatever. Well, hello update. We had to come all the way to the other channel because this needs its own moment. Not a single news source. They're reporting on everything else. Every other famous person done got brought up. Rihanna, Beyonce, Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj. I mean, they're name dropping everywhere and they didn't name drop Ray J. Y'all, and shout out to Mims, Make It Make Sense, because he's the reason I know. Now I know that some other YouTubers have now mentioned it, but that is how I found out. And so, we gotta talk about this. So what happened yesterday, at the time of this recording of this video, yesterday was June 4th, Wednesday, June 4th. It happened on Wednesday, June 4th in the courtroom. Bana was on the stand. Now, we've talked about Bana, I think, on this channel. Her government name is Brianna Bongolan, and she herself sued Diddy already in November last year. So just a few months ago, she sued Diddy. Now, this is the lady that said Diddy dangled her over the side of a 17th-story building balcony. And we talked about balconies, and we did a whole balconies video with the Vanilla Ice and all of that. So Bana's the one that was allegedly dangled over the balcony. That is what she alleges. Now, this story, without her name mentioned, had also already been told in Cassie's infamous lawsuit that broke the floodgates open for the Diddy trial to eventually happen. So Cassie mentions this, dangling her friend over the 17th story floor over whatever, the balcony, in her lawsuit, but she didn't use Bana's name. Well, yesterday, Bono came to the stand in the Diddy trial, but she didn't want to. She gets up there on the stand before the jury even comes in. She says, plead the fifth, which means she isn't going to answer any questions on the stand. And she has the right to do that because the Fifth Amendment guarantees you the right. You have the right to stay silent. The reason that you get read that is because the government, if they want to put a citizen in jail, they have to prove their case and they have to do it without your help. So Bana said, nope, I ain't doing it. I plead the fifth. I have a right to do that. Well, there is something that can override that right and force you to answer the questions, and that is if you're ordered by the court to do so. However, in order to override the Fifth Amendment right, you have to be promised immunity for anything you say. Now, this is the third person in the trial who's done this. We've seen other people do this, George Kaplan and Eddie Garcia. George Kaplan was a former assistant. He testified about some substance activity, and he didn't want to get charged for anything, so he pled the fifth. He was given an immunity ordered to testify, but given immunity so he won't be prosecuted federally for any crimes based on his testimony. Then there was Eddie Garcia. This is the guy that took a bribe, basically, from Diddy. He signed an NDA, and this was about that tape. Diddy basically spent $100,000 to buy that CNN Intercontinental Hotel footage, and he thought it was the only copy. Clearly it was not, but he paid $100,000 to this guard, and the guard that took the $100,000 and divvied it up, he pled the fifth. He did not want to testify, but he was ordered to. So then Yesterday, Bonna, balcony lady, she pled the fifth. They ordered her to testify. However, they gave her immunity. Now, the only way to overcome this immunity, she could still be prosecuted, and that's if she lies. Okay. So it's very important. If you have immunity, so it's not uncommon whenever people have immunity to hear them say more often. I don't know, I don't recall, because that is the situation that Bonna yesterday was testifying under. So Diddy's attorneys took full advantage, and they dropped perhaps one of the biggest name drops in the trial, and it wasn't even reported on. Maybe it has been now, but it wasn't during the live streaming of the trial. So Bonna answers her whole first direct testimony, and then it's time for Diddy's lawyers to come and ask the cross-examination questions. Nicole Westmoreland, this was one of the lawyers with Brian Steele in the Young Thug case. She represented him very recently, and so she's coming off of a popular celebration of sorts in the media, and she's very good. She's good at her job, for sure. So she reminds Bonna of the immunity thing, and she's like, and Moreland is like, and who decides if you're telling the truth? And Bonna's like, the prosecutors? Now, I'm doing a reenactment from nothing. Basically, there's no cameras in there. But essentially, Nicole Westmoreland, she strategically reminds Bonna she can't lie. She reminds her. She gets her to admit it. So she asks a few questions. She's still, at the time of the recording of this video, ain't done asking the questions from cross-examination. But that brings me to the big 1-2 of this whole video. Nicole Westmoreland says to Bonna, would you remember any of the names of the substance dealers where you were getting all these hundreds of, whatever? Bonna said, no, I think it would be hard for me to remember. It was a long time ago. I was on a bunch of substances at that time myself. I've gotten sober now. I really had a very serious problem. All of that. And she's like, so I'm not sure I would remember any names of the substance dealers. Nicole Westmoreland says, was one of them Ray J? A pretty distinguishable name. Apparently, according to Mims, and I'm paraphrasing, Bonna was like playing ignorant, like, I guess maybe that kind of sounds a little like the singer, maybe. Was it like I don't recall. And then Mims put a clip in his video I had never seen before of someone he purported was Ray J with a jacket up over his head. Come to think of it, maybe it kind of looked like the Kid Cudi outfit he wore to jail. It kind of looked like the jail. It kind of looked like the Kid Cudi outfit he wore to trial. Because it's like, why is he wearing that? But he wore it in a music video before. It was maybe something like that. Or maybe he was trying to be like a James Dean or something. Maybe it's because Ray J's running out the hotel where Whitney Houston tragically passed away. This is what Mim said. He said, this is scurrying out. Whitney unalive up there. I didn't. A lot of people were telling me yesterday he had something to do with Whitney Houston was there on the scene of the death and he was her plug. I was like, y'all are so funny, haha, silly. But I didn't know he was mentioned. Somebody even told me, because I block AstroTurf accounts or accounts that I perceive to be pushing an agenda and not like real human beings that are just genuinely, I just block. Because I'm scrolling through Twitter all day and it's these same accounts, they keep coming up and it's like, no, I don't just block them. So somebody in my chat was like, dang, you might as well just block Ray J too. And I said, I might block Ray J if he starts saying stupid stuff that I can see on my Twitter. But again, I didn't even know at the time Ray J had been, because Nicole Westmoreland asked Bonna, under the penalty of if Bonna lies, she could face prosecution. Her immunity goes away. She's just testified to things that could be perceived as criminal activities, innocent until proven guilty. But then you have Nicole Westmoreland saying, was one of the drug dealers Ray J? And Bonna kind of like saying she don't recall. It seems like a strategy to me. Anyway, there's drama about it. And I am wondering why in real time nobody was dropping that name like that. It does remind me of Cassie's testimony whenever she was being asked about the Prince party. Like, did you go to the Prince party? And she said, was that around the time of Whitney Houston's death? Yeah, I went to that party. And now we got a Ray J coming out, and the media ain't even really weren't yesterday at the time. Anyway, I don't know. I just saw it and wanted to do it. But yeah, I just wanted to report that because things are getting lost. The crumbs are getting lost in the couch, if you know what I mean. And this Ray J crumb, I did not want to let it go. So, yeah, I think that's all I really had for this one. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation. Neither are opinions. Neither is speculation. I do not know because I was not there. Love you, Mina K. Bye.
All right. So apparently Ray J's name was dropped at the trial because Bonner said that, he may have been one of the people that brought some drugs. Now, remember when things were getting heated around Diddy being arrested? Okay. And they were saying that the baby oil had drugs in it, MDMA or some shit, that it was inside the baby oil. Now, it was rumors speculating, roaming around that Ray J's ass was buying the bottles of baby oil from Diddy in a nightclub one night so that he could also get his freak off nymphomaniac sessions cracking, okay? So, let's read some of the comments. Isn't it suspicious that Ray J had rumors of relationships with older women who happen to have known substance abuse problems? Wendy Williams, Pam Anderson, Whitney Houston, with photos of them stumbling out of clubs looking a mess while he looks fine. It's reasonable to assume he is a dealer. There's a lot of speculation around Ray J. Ray J had been crashing the fuck out, all surrounding this Diddy stuff. And honestly, I thought that it was because, you know what I'm saying, he thought he was going to be drug into it. And I still don't think that he doesn't believe that he may not be. Let's see. Other comments. Ray J is not surprising with the Ray J Kim K connection. Ray J, the other star from Kim K's favorite tape. Yeah. Ray J is one of the very people very vocal about supporting Diddy. I'm so not surprised. Right. So let's listen to a little bit Nancy Grace disgustingly despise. So we already know it's going to be a hate train, but we just want to hear any of the other facts that she may
You'll have a rude awakening. You'll just have silence. And ain't nobody threatening you. And I ain't trying to go back and forth with no woman. Then after that, you better get on your job. That's really, that's all it is. Ain't no threat. I'm just being clear.
Straight out to the federal courthouse in Manhattan, standing by investigative reporter Lauren Conlon, star of Pop Crime TV. Lauren, what happened in court today?
Essentially, we're seeing a lot of breakup texts. And breakup texts, Jane is expressing over and over again that she feels used. She feels like a sex slave. And she really wants to stop. And I think what the government is trying to show here is that the way that Diddy responds to these texts is, he'll send a screenshot of his knees from his doctor saying his knees are horrible. And then Jane will sort of push her frustrations aside and go to be with him. And I think they're trying to say, okay, well, he manipulated her over and over again. And then we've also heard voice memos from Diddy to Jane, where he's kind of calling her crazy. And that's seems to be a theme of what we're hearing from him as a response to her. You're crazy, you're crazy. He also says things like, no one's forcing you to be here. We're consenting adults. But again, the fact that he pays her rent comes up a lot.
Joining us at the Monahan Courthouse, Tisa Tells with us, investigator and commentator, host of Tisa Tells on YouTube. Wait, Sean Combs actually trying to tell Jane, not her real name, that he has a girl over in workout tights and a workout bra at his house, and all they're doing is working out. And when she rightfully gets angry, he says, "You're crazy. I'm leaving you. I'm not putting up with you. I'm single." And in the earlier message that was played in court, Troy Slayton was pointing out messages from her to him, trying to get out of hotel nights. He says, "Get on your job," because that's really all it is. Okay, describe these two messages we just heard.
Okay, so that first message, I think, was the first moment that Diddy's defense team said, we need another mistrial motion. Because when that message was played and he said, you need to get on your job, I believe everybody's mind flashed to Cassie when Cassie said, this was my job. But at that moment, there was one juror, and I think this gentleman encompassed what the courtroom felt. He literally put his hand on his head, rubbed the top of his head, and just took a deep. It literally hit the courtroom like a bomb. Again, the prosecution, I think at that moment, everybody said, okay, this is RICO, this is sex trafficking by fraud. But when it descended into the gaslighting, where she's still saying in her sweet honey voice, you know, I tried to be everything he wanted, and I wanted to be everything for him. And then I see him give this girl everything I didn't have. She wasn't a thing. The level of gaslighting, the level of manipulation, and the level that even the men on the jury, and I'm not going to lie, I was worried about the men on the jury. When they looked at him, everybody was just looking and had the same thing, like, you are just horrible through and through. But this is a pattern. It is a game. And why this girl is so in love with you, you are literally doing the pimp Romeo tactic of love bombing her, grooming her, and then pull her back. It was really, really bad. And I think at that time, they said, we need a mistrial. We need to try to derail this train. So.
Joining me now, host of Naughty But Nice podcast. You can find him at robshooter.substack.com. That's Shooter, Shuter. Author of The Forward Answer, and more importantly, for tonight, the former PR guru for Sean Combs. I was concerned that when you heard his voice on those messages, it might give you flashbacks. But see, he would show one side, the side that you orchestrated, Rob Shooter, to the public, the glam Diddy. But now we're learning about Pimp Diddy. That's what we're learning. This woman, Jane, had mouth sores, repeat urinary tract infections, and would be forced to hold weird sex positions for hours on end, to where she actually developed a back ailment. Yet you heard the way he talked to her, basically throwing her back in the ring. Thoughts?
It's really a horrifying insight. I've spoken to you before, Nancy, about how Diddy sees his life like a movie. He plots his life out. I think Jane here has outdone her teacher. The pupil has become the master here. What she did on the stand was so amazing. It started as a love story, as a rom-com, and it turned into this horror movie. It was very theatrical, it was very cinematic, and it's going to be very impactful. I spoke to my Diddy sources, and for the first time during this trial, I'm told they're really, really nervous. They were confident, overconfident for a long time. Nancy, that tide has changed. Now they fear. They're real fear coming out of Team Diddy.
How is Combs and or his defense team, which is a multi-million-dollar ensemble, how are they responding?
So the defense team, Tenny Garagos and Mark Agnafilio, okay, they seem to always be in a constant huddle. But here's the weird part. I firmly believe Sean Diddy Combs is in complete control of his legal team. He's always furiously writing notes, telling them, interrupting when they're doing their
He's
questioning,
supposed to be.
passing
He
notes for
ain't
them to
paying them
pay
people
attention.
all that money for fucking
They
nothing.
have
They
been
didn't miss a
furiously huddling
goddamn
to
thing.
themselves, but then also looking at Sean to actually see how he's taking it. How's he behaving? Oddly, also, I think that's when you really see
Get
his
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 asshole is on
issues
the
with
line.
power and
And he
control.
finna be
After the judge yelled at him
the
last week,
source of the
he's
free
been
calls.
oddly
Goddamn it.
staring at the judge, deciding to get up for no reason in the middle of court so he can pour himself a glass of water, doing all these weird games, for lack of a better word, but it's starting to reek of desperation. And that's why it's so odd that when you hear about the mistrial on the outside, yeah, it sounds like they might have something, but in that court, Jane is having them in a meltdown, and Diddy seems to have a constantly angry and kind of defiant look when his mask slips, and he keeps trying to keep his cool, but they're looking at him. I think the real Sean Combs is starting to come out.
Rob Shooter joining me, wildly popular podcast, Naughty But Nice, at robshooter.substack.com, former publicist for Sean Combs. Okay, what is going on behind the scenes? You worked for him for years. Did you hear what she just said? Doing
Yes.
anything because the judge told him he would be expelled from the courtroom if he couldn't behave. He doesn't want that, right? But he's, instead of making faces at the jury, he's now doing other antics to break the flow of Jane's testimony. What's happening in that
he
little head of his?
he's a master of deceit. He's a master of changing the subject. He knows exactly what he's doing. First of all, I just want to say, I don't believe somebody has said no to Diddy in maybe a decade, maybe even longer. And so this will be a real shock to him that a judge, he's not in charge of that room. I can't imagine many rooms that Diddy has been in over the last 20 years where he's not the boss. Diddy is the boss of every restaurant he walks into, every recording studio he walks into, every photo shoot. He is not the boss in this court, and that is going to really, really play on him. So he's trying to get as much power, as much control as he can by these antics, by getting up, by pulling faces. It's not going to be tolerated. So Puffy, Diddy has been put in his place, and Diddy put in his place, I believe, is like a lion trapped in a corner. He's going to lash out, and I think that's exactly what the prosecution wants. We're going to see the real Diddy.
And you know what, Rob Shooter? You, with all these years as a PR expert, the jury can very likely smell the stink of fear. You can actually, it's like a presence in the courtroom. Once the tide turns, suddenly the whole dynamic changes in the courtroom. And I want to hear from your point of view specifically how Combs is responding to this turn in the tide.
He'll be shocked. So at first he'll be in denial about it. I've been at a lot of his shows, and some of them did not go very well. And he used to say afterwards, I could feel the crowd. I'm losing the crowd. That's what he must be feeling right now. He is losing this jury. However, knowing Puffy like I do, he doesn't give in without a fight. He's going to be screaming at his lawyers. He's going to be screaming at his team. It's no coincidence that suddenly his PR machine is outside the trial trying to influence people to say nice things. They know they're in trouble, but they are not giving up without a fight.
So, Tisa Tales joining us at the courthouse. I know you're not an actress, but could you just display for me some of the disgusting looks the jury is making? I got to see this.
Okay. So one juror, which I'm not going to lie, before she seemed to not be buying anything the prosecution was putting down. I looked at them as ground zero of this might be the nullification. When she saw the pictures, okay, it was this. She literally recoiled, okay? There were two jurors toward the end. They're sharing a monitor. Again, I have to tell you how impactful this was. The didn't just show one picture, two picture. It was like again, and again. So it was rapid fire. And they were leaning in almost as if they were looking at like gruesome carnage and leaning out. At one point, she looked to the side. The jury was visibly uncomfortable. They were squirming. They literally had to look away. And the prosecution didn't let up. Another picture, another picture, another picture. And it was so impactful. Again, I'm not going to lie. At that time, I think mistrial. They started to get the idea of throwing in another mistrial. The jury was
He demanded you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He could be really bullying. He could also be very charming. It was really gruesome. It wasn't a job. It was a life. He took over your life.
You had to have seen Diddy's face. He literally was like, what is even happening right now? His jaw was on the ground.
The legacy of Sean Combs. Are you kidding me? What about all the women that we're hearing from? One after the next woman of color that has gotten a beating from Sean Combs. No one seems to. Could you show?
All right, Nancy Grace is coming in hot, y'all, with all of the, YouTube stars. She got Tisa Tell. She got Armand Wiggins. Y'all, when y'all come in here, please remember to like and subscribe. Keep those teacups up and drop the teacups down in the chat. Y'all are up late night with Tanisha Talks Teas. We are on Diddy trial day 15 through current. All right, let's keeping on with Diddy. Up now is Nancy Grace with all of the YouTube stars that are down at the Diddy courthouse, Diddy trial. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get it.
Him the shots of that gash on Cassie's
that's
forehead,
not sex trafficking.
the busted
that's
lip.
Violence.
You see, that's how
This
you
is
win
a
all your
complete
cases.
case.
You say, hey,
This is a
don't listen to that.
case.
Look over here.
Black eyes, fat lips, and I think many of us watching here all feel the same way. I mean, justice for Cassie, Nancy.
Bombshell tonight. TGIFD. Thank goodness it's Friday, Diddy, because this has been an incredible week in the courtroom. I'm talking about that multi-count federal indictment against Sean Callahan, federal courthouse in Manhattan. Straight out to Lauren Collins standing by at the courthouse. Lauren, what happened today?
Today in court, we heard from the government cell phone expert who did the extractions on Cassie Ventura's cell phone. He talked about extracting a significant amount of deleted data and why certain things would appear on the screen in evidence as we're seeing it. So, for example, a deleted text thread might not have certain users' names. So we've seen blanks, we've seen duplicate names, and he explained all of this away. After that, we heard testimony from Jane Doe, who is victim 3. Now, Jane Doe described meeting Sean Combs early 2020, and she met him through a friend while they were on a girls' trip, and she testified that this friend was once in a relationship with Diddy, so she kind of kept her distance. They exchanged numbers, and from there began a relationship after her friend moved on, and she actually talked about the fact that she was in a relationship with Sean Combs from 2020 all the way up until his arrest. Now, Jane Doe testified that the relationship truly started off as a fairy tale. He took her away to Turks and Caicos and then the Bahamas, but he also offered her $10,000 after this trip. He said, I know that you haven't been able to work while you're on this trip, so here's some money. She talked about being a content creator, so that was her main form of income. She's also a single mother. And from there, the government kind of started to ask, well, which cities did he take you to? Did he pay you money often? To which she testified, he paid me money frequently. He ended up paying her rent at some point, and eventually, about 3 or 4 months into their relationship, that's when he brought up being with another man. And he said this was a fantasy. And she said, okay. She didn't think that he was actually serious. Well, it turns out he was serious. She went to the bathroom, and this was after they had already been engaging in sexual activity for 12 to 15 hours prior. He goes and he calls someone he knows named Dawn and arranges Dawn for that very night. And then she describes going to a hotel room that night in Miami, corroborated the oil, the assistant setting it up, and then said she engaged in this act with Dawn while Diddy watched. Again, what we've heard before. And then after that, she said it was pretty much a door that was opened that she couldn't close. She testified telling him in writing numerous times that she didn't want to be with other men. She wanted to be with him, but because he was paying her rent, she felt obligated. She said her only form of income, because she always had to be calm for Diddy, was Diddy's money that he was sending to her and the child support she was getting.
Okay. Could you tell me how the jury was reacting, Lauren Conlon?
The defense was actually admonished today when the judge warned them that Diddy was actually looking at the jury and kind of nodding his head during Nicole Westmoreland's cross-examination of Brianna Bongolan. Apparently, he had gotten this warning before, and the judge told the defense if he does this again, he will be removed from the courtroom.
Joining me now, a special guest, longtime friend and colleague, Rob Shooter. Rob was Sean Combs' PR guru for years. He no longer works for him, thank goodness, or I'd be grilling you even worse. Rob Shooter, host of Naughty But Nice podcast. That's at robshooter.substack.com, author of the 4-word answer. Rob, I want to talk about what Mia has been saying on the stand all day and for several days. The fact that she lived in fear. I believe it was you that first told me that Sean Combs ordered somebody to go get him a cheesecake at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they did it. They found a place that was open. They got the cheesecake and brought it back to Sean Combs. It seems as if he was very imperious with his employees, to the fact that Mia describes PTSD. That's what she's describing. I've seen it in a lot of crime victims. Describe what you witnessed.
My time working with Diddy was extraordinary, Nancy. I've never had a job. I've never experienced anything like that again. And I've gone on to work with stars even bigger than him. It was really gruesome. It wasn't a job. It was a life. He took over your life. He demanded you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He could be really bullying. He could also be very charming. And so I understand everything that Mia's saying. It's heartbreaking, and it's an experience that very, very few, thankfully, will ever know.
Okay, I want to get back to these demands, because if he could make a grown person get out of bed at 3 a.m. and traverse Manhattan to get him a slice of cheesecake, and it had to be the best cheesecake. It couldn't be any crap that you get down at the D'Agostino's, right? What could he make someone like Mia do, who was already meek and mild and traumatized? I mean, I want to hear what it was like. You say it was a way of life. It was your life. Why?
It was our lives because we were young. He had picked people to work with him that he could control. There was nobody on his staff, including me, that was terribly experienced. It was all about him. He carefully groomed us all. He carefully selected us all. And if anybody came into his world who said no, who was too experienced, who knew better, they didn't last. He was the ringmaster, and we played along in his circus.
Rob Shooter, you stated that Sean Combs has a very carefully choreographed personal image. And you told a story about making the press move at a private airport. I guess it was Teterboro. So as they all filmed Sean Combs pulling up, at first you didn't see the private plane. And he was so angry. He actually single-handedly made all the press move where they were standing so he could re-enter Teterboro. So when he got out of his SUV, you could see the private plane behind him. Describe.
Yeah, absolutely true. I was on the tarmac. The press was lined up waiting for him, everybody from national shows to local press. And he drove up in his car and he realized they were shooting this ugly airport terminal behind him. And he wanted a shot of this very, very expensive private plane. So what he did is he left. He restaged his entrance. We spun the press around and we had to go down that line, Nancy, and make sure every member of the press who were videoing deleted their original footage. So we did not leave this to chance. It was something that he had thought of. I wouldn't have thought about this, but he told me, make sure they've all deleted the footage I don't want. I don't want to give them the choice of deciding which footage to use. They'll use the one that I give them.
So he got an entire fleet of the media to change their positions and delete video. I'm making a point. Listen to this, Shooter.
Brian Steele shows Mia a birthday shout out from Combs captioned, "Beside every great man is a great woman. P.S. Sorry I was acting crazy last night." Mia says Combs had threatened her life on a phone call the night before and she took this as his apology. Steele asks if she reposted the message despite the seriousness of the threat, and Mia responds, "Of course," reading off her profusely thankful caption, "Thanks, Puff. Love you. You've shown me the world."
So you're hearing, Rob Shooter, the posts that Mia is making about a birthday wish, and then she gets cross-examined about wishing Sean Combs happy birthday on a post. Now, I have seen victims go along to get along, whether it was your employer forcing sex on you, husband, partner, judge, and you don't want to make waves in the courthouse, so you put up with it and you just keep going. But he's really tearing her up on the stand about this shooter. What do you make of it? You know him.
Yeah, I think this is directed by Diddy. I think Puff is running this entire trial. He's telling his lawyers what to do, which might be a mistake, but his ego is very, very big. And newsflash here, Nancy, it is possible to think love a monster. A person can be a terrible person and you can still have feelings towards them. And I think that's a mistake here that Diddy is making. I think people know the difference. And just because I post something, a birthday message, something kind towards you, doesn't mean you can't also be a terrible human being.
Rob Shooter, are you surprised that Sean Combs has been able to keep so many alleged victims quiet for so long? We've seen multiple civil lawsuits occur after Cassie Ventura came out, and we are asking the wrong questions. We're saying, why are you suing him for money? You're in it just for the money, Cassie Ventura or Mia. Instead of asking the question, why is Sean Combs paying millions and millions of dollars to keep these victims quiet? Why do you think so many victims have gone unheard until now? Maybe because of what we see happening to Mia on the stand?
Yeah. I think there's going to be, we've seen there's a long history of this. Money, power, fame are all really intoxicating. If you can't bully them with your fame, then you throw money at the problems. And I think we have to be honest here. The tape of Cassie changed everything. Once that videotape existed, Nancy, we saw what happened when somebody tried to leave. We saw Cassie running down a hallway. She's trying to get away from him. And look what happened to her. That's why people didn't leave. It wasn't just the money, wasn't just the fame, wasn't just the power. Nancy, it was the violence.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved.
She was looking for a boyfriend. She was looking for a husband. She was looking for a lover. She kept reiterating that she was doing things for her lover. She was doing things for her partner. She was doing things for her man. She would bathe him after they would have these hotel nights. She would cook for him after they do these hotel nights. She would put on his favorite TV shows after she would do this hotel nights. And she would do majority of all the work in these hotel nights. And at the end of the night, she would finally get to have some alone time with Diddy. I think that at the end of the day, she wanted a relationship. She wanted a husband. He didn't want that. He wanted a freak off partner. He wanted a sex slave, and he wanted to get his freaky fetishes off with her through other men.
Armand, I'm curious, what do you think was the strongest evidence for the state this past week in the case against Sean Combs?
Right now, as of the break, the strongest evidence so far for me was a video audio recording. So there actually was a video, but they played the audio of where there was a hookup night at the hotel nights where Diddy, Jane Doe, and one of the male escorts was there. And Jane Doe was wanting to put on and Diddy was saying, no, you've already been taking that. Why do you want to come now? So I think that was the first time we actually got to hear some actual hotel night freak off information. And so to hear her asking for and Diddy not wanting her to actually use the was very powerful, because it goes to the fact that, hey, he didn't want me to use these and I didn't use the because I just wanted to make my partner happy. And you could hear Diddy in the back saying, just let's get to it. Let's keep it moving.
Sean Combs, a.k.a. Diddy, allegedly paid off an employee to the tune of $100,000 to get that Cassie Ventura video. Let's take a look at the Cassie Ventura beat down video. Now, it was speculated upon so much in the press. Where did the video come from? Did it come from the raid on Diddy's mansion? Did he have it there? Where did it come from? Wow. You wonder why he paid $100,000? Did he think it would never come to light? Busted! In court, sworn testimony that Sean Combs paid $100,000 to get his mitts on this video. And this video was like pulling the tiger by the tail. You can't hold on and you can't let go, because once the feds saw this, they had to do something. The statute of limitations had run in the local jurisdiction, so it was up to the feds. And what were they going to do? Stand there with their thumb up their rear end? No, they had to act. Ergo, therefore, the multi-count federal indictment. What was Sean Combs' reaction typically when he doesn't get his way? Because in court, when he was watching Brian Steele, who's a very, very good trial lawyer. He's a great defense attorney, right? I've watched him in action. So Steele started off with Mia with the Andy Mayberry approach, trying to get the answers, but yet being genial to her. He didn't want to beat up on Mia. And you could see Sean Combs going, moving around and twisting around and holding his face and all that. I mean, the jury could see him. And then suddenly, Brian Steele has a change of heart. I mean, you can imagine if Diddy is steering that ship, then he gets really mean to Mia. Steele does. So Diddy not getting what he wants. Can you imagine how angry he was when he finds out that was $100,000 right down the crapper? There was another copy.
Yeah, I'm sure he was absolutely furious. Let me tell you a little bit of a secret here about Puffy. For somebody with all the money that he has, he's incredibly cheap. He never wanted to pay for anything he didn't have to pay for. He wanted to get free clothes, free dinners, free tickets if he went out to clubs, restaurants. He just didn't want to pay for stuff. And so for him to have to reach into his own pocket and pay $100,000, which I think, well, that tape is incredibly cheap. That tape is going to change his life. And so it was worth tens of millions of dollars. For him to get it for $100,000 cheap, and then to find out he didn't get it all, there was another copy, he will have exploded.
I'm just imagining when Sean Combs finds out there's another video floating around. Robert Crispin joining me, private investigator, was with former federal task force officer for the U.S. Department of Justice in the Miami Field Division. They're not sitting around twiddling their thumbs. Former homicide, crimes against children investigator. He is now at CrispinInvestigations.com. Crispin, don't you just hate it when you blackmail somebody to the tune of $100,000 and there's another video floating around? Ruh-roh.
I mean, really, come on, think about it. Do you really think that no one else was going to have a video of Diddy kicking the hell out of somebody? Especially Cassie Ventura? Come on. So here's the beauty of all this with the government. This Castigar letter stuff, this king for a day, queen for a day, they need people to give testimony in lieu of being indicted to say what happened.
Standing by is investigative reporter Lauren Conlon. She's been in the courtroom all day long. Star of Pop Crime TV. What a bomb, a stink bomb for the defense, dropped right in the middle of that clutch of lawyers. $100,000 Diddy bucks paid off for bribery, which is a predicate act. You have to have an underlying felony or predicate act to prove RICO. Tell me how that went over in the courtroom.
Yes, Nancy, we started off by getting a really big interruption by a woman that works for the MTA. The entire courtroom turned around. This is before Eddie Garcia, the witness, walked in. But that was quite a moment. She was screaming at the press, saying that the press is awful and the press is laughing at Diddy. And you should have seen Diddy's face as well as everyone in the courtroom. We were all in shock. But back to Eddie Garcia, I mean, this testimony was incredibly important to this case, as you know. He testified that he received multiple calls from Christina Coram, Diddy's assistant, before she eventually passed the phone over to Sean Combs himself. Eddie Garcia described talking to him, saying, you know, look, I already told your assistant here, but I don't have any clearance to obtain this video that you want me to obtain. I cannot go in this room. Only my boss can do that. And he described Diddy kind of just buttering him up, saying, you know you can do it, Eddie. I believe in you type of thing. And he also described Diddy as being very nervous seeming on the phone, saying, look, this could destroy my reputation if it gets out. Now, he said, okay, I'll talk to my boss, etc. And this was actually after receiving a call from Diddy and Christina on his cell phone. They started off by calling him at the general security desk. They somehow got his cell phone, which he said did make him a little bit nervous. And he said that, he talked to his boss and he said, look, this is what's going on. They want this video. And his boss said, okay, tell him $50,000. They make this meeting happen where Diddy tells him a meeting place. He goes and gets this black USB from his boss at the Intercontinental. And he goes and he meets with Diddy. And he describes being taken up to this room by one of Diddy's security guards. He meets with Christina Coram and then eventually Diddy. And he says that after some back and forth, Diddy requested the IDs of Eddie Garcia and his boss and another gentleman. And one of the first testimonies we heard, I think it actually was the first one, was Israel Flores, who also was on duty that day. But Eddie Garcia said, I don't think that Israel Flores is going to go for this. So they got the ID of somebody else. And they texted these to him. He went in another room, came back, got an NDA. Eddie Garcia had to sign this NDA. And then eventually Diddy came back with a brown bag of money and a money counter. And he did not get $50,000. He got $100,000. And he also said that about 2 weeks later, it was Easter. Diddy called him again to check in, saying, Eddie, my angel, how are you? Have you heard anything or anybody mention this video at all? And he said no. And that was that.
Could you tell me what this reaction in the courtroom when it came out from not one but two witnesses that Combs had bribed $100,000 to get that video?
I'd say today the jury is much more reserved than they were while listening to Mia. I mean, this is this is important testimony. So they are listening intently. I would say their heads kind of go back and forth between the lawyer and the witness, appropriately. And they look at the documents that they're reading. We saw multiple times the NDA on the screen, and these jurors, they were reading it. They wanted to catch every word here.
You know, I'm very curious too. Dr. Bethany Marshall joining us, psychoanalyst out of LA and author. Dr. Bethany, to hear what she's saying, what Lauren Conlon
Thanks for watching. Remember to show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing. It's a blessing. Keep your teacups filled and ready for my next upload. Until then, stay inspired and remember, always stay dipping.